Let's bring in Charlie Rowley.
And I've had nowhere near as much fun.
Let's just bring you straight in, Charlie. And we're talking about Mark Menzies. Here's the thing that I said to Nick this morning, right? Laugh at me if you're going to. Happy birthday. By the way, Charlie Rowley, 21 today.
Thank you.
Imagine if you were standing for a position as an MP and you started your campaign, you've been an advisor, and you said, just to let everybody know, including the press, I've been divorced a couple of times. I've got 4 children. This isn't me. I mean, I've been divorced more than that. You know, I took drugs at school. When I was at college once, I once, you know... Imagine if you were absolutely open, so you could go to your constituency with no skeletons in your closet. Would you get elected? Because I think you would.
I think you probably would.
So why don't politicians be more honest with the British people then?
Well, I think most are, I think.
OK.
And I like to think most are, and I think it's to Nicola's point.
But you don't understand the numbers we're talking about here.
Totally. And I think, look, you know, there are scandals that I think happen clearly when people become MPs, and your texter there, I think, is right. You know, people get into politics, the power sometimes gets a bit too much, or there is too much of an elevated position of oneself, or the ego is massaged so much that you think you are above the law.
Seemingly, Charlie, not just the ego.
And if there'll be many scandals surrounding sex and other abuses that shouldn't take place. But I think, look, you know, you've got to be genuine. Actually, I think in public life, people can forgive. Exactly as you were saying earlier on, Angela Rayner, if something has gone wrong, because Angela Rayner's had a difficult past, you know, more probably difficult than most politicians. You know, people can forgive people. Boris Johnson, not someone who's not committed a misdemeanour once or twice, but people forgive him because it's Boris, because it's genuine, because it's his character. You can overlook the faults that we all have if you're open about it, because you're getting on to do a job and you're doing a good job. But when you try and hide things, or if you try and play it different, that's when I think the public do find this incredibly difficult to take, because someone has fundamentally presented themselves as a character to the public, to the electorate, and they've turned out to be something else.
About earlier in 2014, I think this is fascinating, with your point earlier about forgiven.
In 2014, he was allegedly involved in another scandal. It says here on the front page of the Sunday Mirror from that year, Tory MP quits in drugs and rent boy scandal, and yet he remained within the party. He's, you know, what is he, trade envoy now, or was?
Got re-elected, though, as Charlie said last hour. That's
yeah,
the thing.
he got
they could have
re-elected.
thrown him out, right?
Well, he got re-elected by his constituents, presumably. But what do you think the issue is with the culture in Westminster? Do you think that the culture creates the people, or do you think that actually it attracts these kind of characters to work in those positions? Or does it create them?
Does it seduce them in a way, the culture?
I don't think it does. I don't think it seduces you, because you never quite know what it's like until you're actually there.
Yeah.
But I think it certainly adds to the pressure, and if you are turning up every day, if you're voting on legislation, if you're changing the laws of the land, and you're getting pressure from different campaign organisations, if you're getting pressure from constituents, if you're receiving a barrage of abuse day in, day out, if you're away from home, if you don't have a family, or if you're quite lonely, and you can be lured into the routine of, you know, daily... there's always an event happening in Westminster, so you can always get a drink, you can always go to lunch, you can always be lobbied by a journalist or a campaign organisation, or there is a lot of socialising that goes on, and then when you eventually, or effectively get home, and you close that door, and you haven't got that adrenaline running, or if you haven't got that sort of, you know, something to do, or that shot in the arm that keeps you going because you are an important person. That hits, exactly.
Yeah, you look for it elsewhere.
You look for it elsewhere.
Try and turn it around. Last hour I was saying, do you think we pay our politicians enough? Do you think they're attracting the wrong people? Let's turn that on its head. With what you just described, and I know this will go down like a lead balloon to a degree, but let me get to the end of the sentence. Maybe it's just a less attractive job because of the things that you say, not the money. Maybe the pressure is... Maybe people will turn their backs on becoming MPs or prospective MPs for what they see. But I don't know whether the world has changed. MPs, when I was growing up, were supposed to be our elected representative, not a bunch of sort of dysfunctional... But then why should they not be dysfunctional? Everybody else is, seemingly. Do you know what I mean? Maybe we put too much pressure on them. Maybe nobody... You want to be an MP, though, don't you?
Well, I stood a few years ago.
Did you stand a few years ago?
I did, yes, yeah.
Where?
In Halton, just outside Liverpool. So I don't know why I didn't win outside Liverpool as a Conservative, but there we are.
Did you get any votes?
I think you'd be an excellent
Over
MP,
10,000. Over 10,000. So
it was fabulous.
It was a nice experience, but you're right. I think you've got to... I mean, you've got to be aware of politics. You've got to be aware of Westminster. You've got to be aware, I think, of just how, you give so much to it, and you've got to be totally committed. It's a 7-day-a-week job. When you're not in Westminster, you're back in your constituency.
I suppose my argument is that there are plenty of people, men and women, who work away with families and don't end up with rent boys or ladies or drugs or drink, or, they work 12 hours, they get into their lorry, or they sleep at the side of the road, or they go to a friend's house. Some of the crew here will travel up from miles away and leave their families to do their jobs. So, when people talk to me about pressure, is there pressure on being 80 grand a year and you can have a drink and dinner every single night? I don't know.
Well, I think it's also the paranoia within all political parties, because Keith Vaz was another example. He was chairman of the Home Affairs Select Committee that had a similar issue.
Yes.
But I think there's also just the daily pressure, but also just the paranoia within political parties, because you never quite know, even though you are a collective as a group of backbench MPs, whatever side of the divide you're on, they're all individual. They all have their individual employees. They all have their individual diaries, all individual lifestyles. You never quite know what your neighbour's doing next door, or your fellow Conservative MP, or who's on whose side of whatever the party divide is.
And all of this allegedly resulted in Mark Menzies, because of the pressure, finding himself somewhere at 3 o'clock in the morning. I mean, it's just an extraordinary story, man, isn't it? I mean, it's
also the kind of arrogance from so many MPs of thinking that they wouldn't get caught.
Yes,
or,
yes.
Alternatively,
stupidity.
It's stupidity.
Yeah.
Why would they take part in... Well, there's either an arrogance to go, I can do whatever I want, I'm so powerful, I won't get caught, or an arrogance to say, even if I get caught, it won't matter, or it's pure stupidity.
Yes, or you either, to be perfectly frank about it, you either front it up. If you've done nothing wrong, you can engage in partying, you can go out as an MP, you can have a social life, you can have quite a colourful life if you want to have one. If you're not hurting anyone, if you're not breaking the law, you do what you want. If you can front it up and say, this is me, but actually, what I do in Westminster is over there.
Good for you,
That's a very good point.
You can do that, but when you start
I meant when I said front out who you are and what you are.
Yes, and I think because so often there becomes these discussions, don't they, about banning all alcohol at Westminster. OK, and I completely accept that, but we should be able to have a drink and not engage in behaviour that hurts other people.
Totally. And again, to be perfectly honest with you, with everybody, I think, and we have to kind of wake up and stop clutching our pearls at times that, some people are all held up to such a high degree.
That's what I'm saying.
That MPs are on online dating sites. There will be MPs, like members of the public, that have exchanged explicit images, with a partner or somebody else along the line. This does go on. It's not a new phenomenon.
When you get elected as a new MP and say, I mean, that's really interesting what you said. Do you think they live in fear that they're going to be found out? Are we expecting them to be paragons of virtue? Too much?
Do you expect Angela Rayner to be a paragon of virtue?
I expect my elected representatives, if I'm being... I take Charlie's point. First of all, I expect them to tell the truth. And secondly, I expect them to respect their job when they look at how this country is struggling. And genuine people, jams, are working 12 hours a day. People can't get jobs, all those sorts of things. I would then expect people on 80 grand a year not to be paragons of virtue, but to at least give me the impression they care about what's going on in this country. That's what I'm saying. Not at 7 o'clock at night. Have a drink, go on a dating website, but don't take the out of the people who put you there.
And the number of allegations that over a number of years, it seems to me, that stacked up against Mark Menzies, I think will, even though, yes, he was re-elected in 2015 on the back of that 2014 scandal, he would have done the same in 2017 and 2019. His constituents have given him, I think, a...
Happy birthday, Charlie Rowley. Look
Charlie
at that.
Rowley. We love you so much, and we're so grateful for you to come in on your birthday.
You love that, don't you?
Thank you very much.
Can we not set fire to it?
I think there's probably some sort of health and safety regulation
don't worry about that.
the fact that we can't light
That's so kind,
I want you to go home and eat that on your own.
Well, I will. I've got no one else.
We all want a piece.
It's red velvet. Yeah, she's going to eat it. Watch out. But happy birthday, mate.
Charlie.
Thank you so much.
We love you so very much, and you've been an absolute asset to this programme.
Legend.
And we love you.
I've loved coming on. I've loved being with you two every morning.
Oh, good.
The mornings I'm here. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Charlie Rowley, happy birthday. How old is it today, seriously?
34. In an hour. In exactly an hour.
Oh,
you were born at 8:15.
Yes, I was.
Did you?
8:17, I think I was.
Well, it's an hour and 2 minutes then.
Hour and 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Steve. A Conservative advisor and birthday boy, Charlie Rowley.